Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Quick video today on how to winterize your car. I'm going to be winterizing my 95 Impala SS and talk a little bit about the other vehicle I have winterized. Got a beautiful fall day going on here. And with fall, you know what comes after that. In Michigan, it's winter. In wintertime, we have to put our cars away or our vehicles away to make sure that they don't get put on salty roads and they get all rotted out. So for me, today's video, I'm gonna be winterizing the Impala. It's mid-October. I've had it out for about 6 months now, and yeah, it's time. I put some miles on it. Yeah, it's just time to put it away for the winter. You never know here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan when the snow might start flying. It's actually been pretty nice the last few weeks. So next week calls for even in the 50s. Well, even the 50s through the end of the month. But I'm putting it away because I got some stuff I want to do to it, and I'd rather get it stored. All right. So first thing you got to ask yourself is, where are you going to store your vehicle? I kind of have couple vehicles, so I got to store them in a couple different places. The Impala, it's going to be stored in the garage for the most part. When I got a project I had to bring in here and work on, thaw out one of the trucks from massive winter snowstorms, I'm just going to pull it out in the driveway and park it out there, pull the other one in, so I'm not too worried about it. You know, snow is just like rain. I drive this thing in the rain all the time, so I'm not too worried about it. However, it's going to be parked over concrete the entire time. So parking a car for storage over concrete versus parking a car over grass or dirt tends to change how you want to store them. So for the Impala's sake, it's going to be over concrete when it's in the garage or out in the driveway. And what I'm going to do when I go through and do this is use a couple different products. I always start with the fuel system. I use this stable fuel stabilizer storage. I'd say probably about 6 gallons in here, so I'm going to put 2 ounces. It's got a little squeeze bottle, tells you how many ounces to put in there. And that's all you got to do is just go ahead and dump it in there. I always start, like I mentioned, with a fuel system just because it's the easiest. But before I do one of the last drives, I go to the gas station and I get some ethanol-free premium and put that in there and mix it up, drive it around, kind of get it down just to work it through the injectors and the whole fuel system. So the second thing I'm going to throw in is Berryman's. It's good. It cleans the entire fuel system, gas tanks, etc., etc., etc. The biggest thing I like is it's great for applications used in small engines after seasonal storage. I think that's more for like a fire up when you get it going in the spring or whatnot, but I'll just throw a half a can of this in there just to, I don't know, make myself feel better. And then the other half of it, I'm going to put into the actual crankcase of the engine. So that's it really for the fuel injection system. Like I mentioned, now we're going to go underneath the hood, pop the hood. Ooh, good old sound. So we're going to pop the hood. I'm going to pop the engine oil cover off. I'm going to put my trusty funnel in there. And half a can. Berryman's, there's the witness. Down into the crank. So what this is going to do, as I mentioned, it's going to mix with the oil. It's going to go through all your little ports and passages in there. It's going to clean up all the carbon buildup that it has. Judging by, if you've seen my other video with the idler air control, how gummed up dirty that thing was, I can just imagine the inside of this is the same. 215,000 miles. What do you expect? So probably one of your biggest fights you're going to have in a garage or outside if you store your vehicle out there is dealing with critters, rodents, mice. They get in here, they build nests. We've all seen the resurrection videos where they tear stuff up, destroy wires, everything else. So thing I like to do is take peppermint extract and I will mix it up in a bottle and just spray it everywhere. Of course, I'm doing this just in the garage, so I'm not too concerned with it as much as I would be as like the Suburban. It's parked out in a tarp tent. But stuff I'm talking about, they have is this rodent vehicle protection. And this, you can see it's pure organic peppermint essential oil and water. So you spray it, it smells like a giant peppermint patty. I really hate peppermint. I'm sure mice do too, and that's why they don't tend to build nests. But I just go through and I spritz some. You know, I want to stay away from the headers and whatnot. I mean, not that it's going to matter, but you just spritz it in there. And if you had smell-o-vision, you'd smell some good old peppermint stuff going on. I want to make sure to get it in your little cubby holes. You know, if it's got a stream feature, you know, spray it down into the little crevices down here in the fenders. Just get it all where mice are going to be and where it's not going to let them get in and build a nest. Other things you can use, people use dryer. Never really had good luck with the dryer sheets, so I'm trying that stuff. I actually bought that stuff off Amazon. It was really cheap, but the essential oil is what I did a couple years ago when I had this thing stored at an off-site facility, and I'll get into how I stored it then too. But all I did was I took that essential peppermint oil. You can buy little vials of it at the grocery store. I bought 2 or 3 of them. I took a whole one and I dumped it in a squirt bottle like this and filled the rest of it up with water, shook it up really good, sprayed it. I had zero. I was kind of paranoid at an off-site location where you're not going to get to, you know, it worked. The other thing I did with it is I sprayed it all in the trunk and I sprayed it all in the engine compartment and inside the you know where I'm talking, where you sit during you drive the thing. And come spring, 6 months later, after I got out of storage, I sat in, I still smelled peppermint, and I was like, okay, there's not going to be any mice in here. They weren't going to be up in the dash. They weren't going to be in there. They weren't going to get in the squirrel cage of the fan and any of that kind of stuff. So I was pretty happy with that. That worked out really well. Another thing that I did there that I'm not going to do here is I took WD-40 and I sprayed basically the entire engine compartment down, and I also sprayed like my brake rotors, front and back, and like anything that potentially could rust per se, flash rust. I didn't want it to flash rust. I just wanted a nice little coating on it, you know, from humidity and whatnot. So, you know, if it's going to sit and you feel like doing that, by all means. I didn't have any issues with it. You know, it worked fine, but you know, just this kind of stuff to think about in the back of your mind. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it just all depends on where you're storing the vehicle. With me storing it here in the garage again, not going to get that meticulous. So just putting some mint in the engine compartment to call it good. Next thing, now is a good time to go through and, it might sound silly, but clean it. Clean it up. I got some crumbs, some dirt on the floor mats there. I'm going to vacuum up. I got this old air freshener that's about depleted. I'm going to pull that out, take any trash out. You know, any papers that are in there, anything that might heat up and leak. You know, I got some hand sanitizer in here. You don't want that stuff exploding and leaking in here. So just go through, clean out the vehicle really well. You know, make sure it's going to be good to go. wipe down the dash. I can't tell you, even in the wintertime, how dry the conditions are and what can do to wreak havoc on your dash. So make sure to armor all up the dash and get your seats all nice and armor all up. My seats are getting to be a little dry, so I'm gonna go through and get all that stuff cleaned up on the interior. And then second to that, don't forget about your paint. You want to make sure to put some kind of a coating of something on it. Give it a good wash, and I have some ceramic coating that I'm gonna put on it and just wipe it down. It's gonna get dusty, it's gonna get dirty again. You're gonna have to do it again in the spring, but it's just good practice to get all the contaminants off of your paint now and your windshield, and then put a fresh coat of whatever wax ceramic coating you choose. That way any contaminants from the winter that sit on there all winter, they're not gonna do anything to your paint. When you go to wash it, it'll just wash right off, or the work you're gonna have to do to get it cleaned up again is gonna be a hell of a lot less than what it would be if you would just let it go. Stuff I'm choosing, you guys have seen me use all the time, is this Turtle Wax ceramic spray coating. Pretty simple. Spray it on, wipe it off. I'm not going to be too meticulous with smears and streaks and whatever else, because again, it's going to be stored. But yep, I'm going to go through and do this right now. So you saw me go through, wipe down the whole outside of the car. I'm not going to bore you with wiping down the inside because that's pretty simple, but let's move on to the trunk. As I mentioned, you just never know what you're going to end up having in your trunk, so it's always good to just clean it out and get the car good clean out. Like I got some towels, some old, not old, but a blanket, a cooler, some water in it, fuel filter, got a belt, you know, some oil. You gotta watch this stuff because that'll, sometimes they tip over and you can see it's kind of somewhat leaking out of there. That's gonna get all on your carpet and leak through the winter, and then you're gonna have a nice mess when you get back in the spring. So you just want to look out for anything like that. Take out any junk. So I got a quick vacuum in here, but definitely noticing some stuff. I'm gonna get after next year. Some dirt and grime back there that I haven't cleaned in quite some time, but I'm gonna pull the mat out next spring, power wash it, clean it all up, go through, deep clean it, get rid of that big spare tire. I want to get an actual Impala rim spare tire, but we'll see. And then I gotta fix this stupid trim because it seems to be loose there. So anyways, but yeah, like I mentioned, get all your stuff cleaned out of it. Don't leave anything behind. If you notice anything, check your rubbers, make sure they're not going to leak on you if you're going to store it outside, because that would be bad. And yeah, outside is all shiny. You guys saw me ceramic coat it. You can still see some of the smudges on there. I don't really care because it's going to just protect it as normal. I'm going to go ahead and move to the inside, but I did want to point out a couple quick things that I got. I have these cleaning wipes, and keep in mind, if you're going to go through and actually clean and protect, they're two different things. So you got a cleaning wipe, it'll actually clean up all your grime, grease, and it'll clean up the original protectant that you put on there. So you got to make sure to reapply the protectant. I've seen it in a couple other cars where guys have just used this thinking that it's got the protectant in it, and it doesn't. So just be very mindful when you're spraying that you're applying the protectant and actually not stripping it down. I do like to go ahead and soak down the area pretty well. Let it sit for a couple minutes. I'm just going to kind of lightly blend all this in. I'm not going to wipe it down completely. I want it to actually sit on the leather, and I want it to soak into it and absorb it so it stays nice and clean. So just kind of go through and just smear it down around essentially, and don't wipe it down. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll soak into the leather and be good to go. So should have a nice little shiny gloss to it, but it'll help it through the winter, through the dry days that you're not out here wiping it down. So something to think about. I will mention while doing that, if you have any seat belts or something, try not to spray those. If you do, just wipe them down to dry, because they will rust on you and they won't work. So little tidbit. Same thing goes for like these little screws in here. Just kind of clean them up really well. Don't let any moisture sit on them. Even the Armor All stuff, it'll corrode them out. So another thing while you're going through cleaning up, make sure to get your door jambs. Wipe these down. Bottom of the sill, make sure that rubber is all wiped down, good to go. You get road grime in there, and that does cause rust. I got a little bit right there. You can kind of see in the light. I'm gonna have to go through, wipe all this down, but yeah, go through, wipe that down, inspect your the rubbers, make sure they're a good seal. Something I noticed, it happens every year. I get little spots right here, and I just scrub it off. I don't know what the heck it is, but every year I get a nice little bloop thing going on there. It comes right off. Huh. Anyway, on to the rims. I really don't do much to the rims. I pretty regularly will clean them up through the course of the year. I just spray Armor All around them, and the excess gets on here, and I go through and wipe everything down. I get a little bit of dirt from road grime, but I just use the Armor All protectant tire stuff or some tire shine and make sure it's on the rim and it's coated, and it keeps all the road grime and brake dust and everything else, just washes it right off. So I'm not going to do much with these because it is parked in the garage. Suburban gave it a fresh coat of that because it is parked in tarp tent outside, as I mentioned, for the winter. So a couple other little things you want to take in consideration, as I mentioned. In the garage, of course, I got a couple mouse traps, bait blocks, but it's pretty well sealed up, and I haven't really had much activity of mice entrance, but down there at the bottom of the jam, you can see some light coming in, so I'm going to have to fix that. But mice will get in through there, so make sure your door seals, they're good to go. This one I repaired last year. Just took an old tire and cut it up and self-tap screwed in there. Seems to be holding up pretty well. Any gaps, make sure you put great stuff in there and seal up your garage. Can't tell you how many times critters get in here. And they hide. So I got a bait block station set up there. I got a bag of it right there. I bought a bucket of it. And what I do is the garage, I don't really, like I mentioned, put too many out, but where I got Bert is he's in my tarp tent over there. Tarp tent is just basically a tent set on the ground. So I got a bunch of those bait blocks set up around. I have a tarp laid underneath on the ground, and Bert's actually on that so the moisture doesn't get up and rot it out. And I put that mint stuff in the engine compartment, sprayed it all in the interior. I'm going to go through that and do that pretty regularly, weekly, and check on my bait blocks weekly because they will get in there and eat. Other thing I have an issue with that I had it in there for 2 days. I got ground squirrels or chipmunks or whatever. They got up, started piling up acorns in the engine compartment. It was like ridiculous. So I went and got some of this stuff. It says it lasts 2 months. It smells like garlic bread from Little Caesars. So Sprinkled it on the outside of it, keeps critters away. We'll see how well it does. Actually sprinkled some of that in the engine compartment too, and throughout the tarp tent, just to keep everything out of there. But I don't like parking stuff in tarp tents over the winter because critters get in there no matter what. What do you do? So that's that for right now. We just have one more little step that we need to do. Do you remember when we put fuel additive in the tank? You know, put the stuff in the crank, the Berrimans. Now I got to fire it up and let it run. And you do that so you can cycle it through. Fuel pump churns it up a little bit in the back, churns up the gas, does whatever, and gets up to the fuel injectors, gets to the fuel filter, gets to the fuel lines. Make sure all the fuel that's in there doesn't go to junk, you know, because you don't want that. So last thing we're going to do, I'm going to fire it up. I'm going to let it run for a few minutes. Before we get into that, I'm going to pop the hood again, check out my vitals, check the coolant, check the oil really quick. Just make sure all the fluids are good to go, topped off. But then we're going to fire it up, let it run for 15-20 minutes, just let it get up to operating temperature. Smells minty. Yep. Overfull. Just like I suspected. Yep. Good deal. Fire in the hole. Well, she's up to operating temperature. Cooling fan kicked on. Looking mighty fine out in the sun. Not gonna lie. Kind of disappointed putting it away for the winter, but oh well, what do you do? So I'm gonna let this run for a little bit more. Go ahead, give this thing a little bit of a rev up. See all that nice moisture that's coming out. Condensation. Alright, Impala is 99% winterized. I still have a couple little things I'm going to take care of here, but yeah, pretty well done. Springtime, when I go to take it out, it's going to be a minimal, quick oil change, check the fluids, go get gas, just drive it. It's the beauty of it. So hope you guys got some tips out of this. Enjoyed the video. If you like, subscribe, do your thing, do whatever YouTube says. Catch you in the next one. See ya. Look at you soaking up that sun. Puppy, puppy, puppy.